Hi everyone, it's Erin from the Provincial Farmhouse. In today's video, we're going to be doing some French farmhouse thrift flips. For my first project, we're going to be working on these two chickens. I have this sweet little hen here. There wasn't much wrong with her really. The color was obviously a bit drab and tired. Sadly, our little rooster had some chips out of his beak and also some chips out of his tail. So we're going to give them a makeover. I'm using Dixie Belle's Buttercream chalk mineral paint and my size 10 eco brush. I really like how the bristles are tapered. It's really helping me get that paint into all of the beautiful details on our little hen here, because there is a lot of details. As soon as I saw these, I thought that they needed a refresh and that the amazing details in these designs would look great with wax. So that's what we're going to be doing a little bit later on as well. So it's going to take 2 coats of the buttercream to get the coverage I want on our 2 little figurines. I'm keeping these pretty neutral with the cream paint, and later we're going to add some brown wax, but you could add black or grey paint to these and then do a white wax. That would look lovely. It would almost look like stone, or you could go bright and colourful. It just depends what your style is. Once my 2 coats of chalk paint are dry, I'm going to be using Dixie Belle's Best Dang Wax in Clear. I'm going to put down an even coat on each of our little chicken statues there. This is going to seal the paint, but it's also going to be a great base for our brown wax that we're going to add a bit later. I'm buffing back the excess of our clear wax using a paper towel. If you don't have access to wax but you still want to create an aged look, I suggest that you seal your paint with a clear coat, and then you could come in with a glaze or maybe a paint wash instead. Next, I'm going to use Dixie Belle's Best Dang Wax in brown, and I'm using my La Petite brush. It has a tapered end, so I'm able to work that brown wax into all of the details on our little chicken there. And then I'm using paper towel to wipe back the excess. I really want that brown wax to sit down in all of those carvings and really highlight the feathers and the sweet little face of the chicken. And down the bottom, there's actually, amongst the chicken's feet, are little mushrooms even and rocks. These are really detailed statues, and adding this wax is really bringing out all of those beautiful little elements. So I'm going to continue adding the brown wax to our rooster first, and then once I'm finished with him, I will be repeating the same process on our little hen. And here's a look at how our rooster and hen turned out. This was a pretty easy makeover, but I feel like it was very effective. They don't look drab anymore. They look quite French country, farmhouse. I think that they would look beautiful in anyone's decor collection. Let me know what you think of this in the comments. For my next project, I'm going to be giving this tray a makeover. It is a handmade piece and it is quite heavy. It felt a bit French country farmhouse to me. So I'm going to start by using Paint Couture's Basil chalk paint, and I'm going to be applying 2 coats around the outside and inside, except for the bottom of the tray on the inside. And something to note is that when you're using Paint Couture's chalk paint, it is a bit thinner than other brands, but that being said, as long as you stir it really well, you're not going to have any issues. The pigments are very vibrant. You will also find that because the paint is just a little bit thinner, that you will get a much flatter and smooth finish using this. As I was doing this, I did try my best not to get any of the green paint on the center part of the tray. I'm using my size 12 eco brush and it is tapered, so it does make this job a bit easier. However, if you want a little bit more reassurance that you're not going to get any paint there, I suggest that you tape off the center section before you start. After my 2 coats of chalk paint are dry, I'm going to be taking Dixie Belle's Buttercream chalk mineral paint, and I'm going to be adding that to the inside of our tray. I'm really loving the two-toned look at the moment, especially green paired with cream. I just love that combination. So I'm going to carefully go in, and you can see I'm really taking my time around the edges there, and I'm adding that beautiful cream paint. Now, it doesn't matter if this isn't perfect, if I miss certain areas, if that wood shows through, it does not matter. We are going for a bit of a farmhouse look here, so it doesn't need to be perfect. And so I'm going to continue adding that paint until I have the whole base covered, and I'm actually going to do 2 coats of paint before I move on to my next step. Once my 2 coats of buttercream are dry, I'm going to take IOD's Rose Chintz paint inlay, and I'm going to take out 1 sheet of this design. This has not been used before, and I'm going to start working out how much I'm going to need. So I'm going to lay it inside my tray first, and once I've done that, I am going to first trim off the border around the edge of your inlay. So each inlay has this border. You'll want to trim that off when you're doing your measuring, and then I'm actually putting the sheet inside the tray and doing some creases where I'm going to need to cut. And I did cut a couple of millimeters over just in case my measurements weren't quite right. So I'm just going to trim that to size before we move on. Next, I'm going to lay down an even coat of my Buttercream chalk mineral paint again, and I'm working a little bit quicker than last time because when you're doing a paint inlay, you need to lay your paint inlay in wet paint. You cannot wait till it dries. It will not work, because what happens is that your wet paint grabs the design on the paint inlay, and the paint from the inlay stays as your paint dries. It is a very fun product to use. So while my paint's still wet, I'm going to press my paint inlay design side down. You can see that the grid is facing up at me, and I'm going to smooth that design into my wet paint gently. I don't want to press too hard. I don't want to squish that paint out, but I do want good contact. I'm then going to take a water mister, and I'm going to mist my paper well, and then I'm also going to take a damp cloth there, and I'm going to pat that down to make sure that my inlay's making good contact and I don't have any air bubbles. Once I've done that, I did take a craft knife and I made some little cuts in the little grooves that were made by the planks of wood, because I want my inlay to be able to sit down and make contact with those sections so that I don't have such a broken design. So I'm just going to do that in each of those sections very gently and carefully. After I finished making my cuts, I misted my inlay a little bit more. Then I took my damp rag and applied just a bit more pressure in the areas where I had cut. Again, just making sure that that inlay design has made contact with the paint that's in the grooves. I then let this dry completely. After about an hour my inlay was dry, I then came in with my water mister again, and after 60 seconds I started the process of pulling this away. Now, because I made those little cuts, it is going to come away in fragments. Now that's okay, I will just be using my inlay again on, say, a photo frame or something that requires thin strips or bits and pieces of the design, because you can reuse your paint inlay up to 3 times. So you can see I'm gently pulling my design away there. If I feel any resistance, I will just use my water mister again to dampen that paper, and I will put these off to the side to dry, and I'll use them again at a later date. Once I'm finished pulling my inlay away, I did take it outside and I used Rustoleum's Satin Spray Sealer. If you brush on a water-based sealer on top of your inlay, you do risk smearing, because obviously these are real paint pigments. So it's definitely suggested that you use a spray sealer before you come in with brushing a sealer on. Once my spray sealer is dry, I'm taking Paint Couture's Extreme Guard Satin Top Coat, and I'm going to seal the outside of the tray and do one more coat on the inside of the tray as well. When my clear coat is dry, I'm going to take Paint Couture's light brown sugar glaze, and I'm going to be working that into the center of the tray first. You can see I'm really letting it pool and accumulate in the grooves of our tray there, and I love how it's picking up the imperfections that my paint inlay caused in the paint. Now I love that look. I know it's not for everybody. I'm then going to take a baby wipe and I'm going to wipe back the excess, again letting that glaze sit in those grooves and highlight some of those imperfections. I was definitely going for a vintage look here. I almost wanted that to look like old wallpaper maybe that had come away from some old barn wood in the center there. I was just really having fun with this piece. Once I'd finished applying it to the center section, I did then decide to also add it to the rest of the tray because I really liked how it aged the paint finish, and it just all brought that whole piece together. Everything worked a lot better together and a lot more seamlessly once I added that glaze. So you can see I'm applying it and then I'm using that baby wipe, but I'm not necessarily just wiping it. I'm actually doing some dabbing and sort of pouncing because that's also creating some interesting patterns as well while I'm doing that. Again, very subtle because I am using a glaze over a darker color. And here's our finished tray. I love how this turned out. It's definitely giving me vintage vibes. Let me know what you think of this in the comments. For my final project today, I'm going to be using this beautiful frame that I thrifted. I actually love how it looks, so the only thing I'm going to do to the frame is just clean off the little price that they had drawn on the glass. I'm then going to take some of my art paper and a transfer from IOD's brocante transfer pad. I'm going to lay the back of the frame on my artist paper and then trace around it so that I know how much paper I'm going to need. I'm just doing a little double check there to make sure I have the width correct because I couldn't actually take that backing off to use it flat against my paper. I'm then going to trim the design there to the size that I need. Once I'm happy with how that's going to fit, I'm going to take my light brown sugar glaze again, and I am going to be adding it straight to the paper. I'm not using too much of that product. And then once I have done that, I'm going to take a wet wipe and I'm going to sort of start spreading it and smearing it and then also wiping it back a little bit. Now you can use these papers with watercolors, so I found no issue with adding the glaze. Once my paper is dry, it's time to add my transfer. So I'm going to peel off the white backing and then position the design in the center of my paper, and then I'm going to use my transfer tool to start rubbing over the entire design first. I have my transfer pad behind it so that I have something firm to rub the design against, and then I'm lifting that plastic and rubbing as I go, just being sure that the design has released before I peel my plastic back any further. Definitely take your time when you're doing this, especially if your transfer has some intricate details like this one does. And I'm just going to continue until I have the entire design transferred, and once I have, I'm going to take that same plastic sheet and burnish it a bit further. I'm then going to add the artwork to our frame. And here's a look at our finished little artwork. This was a quick and easy flip. Let me know what you think of this in the comments. I really hope that you enjoyed today's video and that it's inspired you to perhaps try paint inlays or IOD transfers. Let me know if you had a favorite project from today. If you enjoyed today's video, I would really appreciate it if you would hit that like button, comment, and share it out. If you haven't already, I would love it if you would hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you don't miss out on any of our videos. You can find the products used today on our website, theprovincialfarmhouse.com.au. Thanks for watching.